Good evening. Chair calls to order public hearing for Bill 24-008, fire lanes. Mr. Truitt.
Thank you, Council President Pacini, members of the council. It's an honor to present testimony this evening on Bill 24-008, modifications to Chapter 244, Article 2, fire lanes. Provisions of this article were last updated by Bill 2063, which focused on efforts regarding designation and establishing standards. Fire lanes or fire department access roads are an essential provision for the fire service to provide adequate unobstructed access to buildings and structures. Fire department access roads also play a key role within the provisions of the county's building code and state fire prevention code. These codes provide provisions establishing area increases when buildings complying with also open perimeter access and unlimited area building provisions. These are essential concepts relying upon fire department access for these allowances to be granted. The legislation before you this evening intends to modify the county code by, one, transferring the authority to designate fire lanes to the directors of the Department of Inspections of Emergency Services, inspections, licenses, and permits, enabling the directors of the Departments of Emergency Services and inspection license permits to develop, maintain rules and regulations in accordance with Section 807 of the county charter, to administer the provisions of the article, develop design standards, develop provisions to designate fire lanes for existing structures undergoing renovations which require building permits, establish maintenance provisions for existing designated fire lanes, refine enforcement responsibilities, and establish minimum periodic review of adopted rules and regulations. Upon passage of the legislation, it will be necessary for both departments to convene a work group of vested stakeholders to comprehensively look and establish updated provisions for fire lanes in accordance with the provisions of the article. Once implemented, the design standards will be created that provides an essential part of the design community and incorporated at the time of conceptual planning, validated during the permitting process, and inspected prior to occupancy approval. I appreciate your time this evening. In closing, I ask for your favorable support, and I'm willing to ask and answer any questions you guys may have.
Thank you, sir. Council, anytime. Mr. Penman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. Good job for your team on this. I know we worked a lot on this and had a lot of discussions at least, and this is something that Councilman Giangiordano is passionate about it as well. So I think this is a well-crafted bill. There are a couple of small little things that we've discussed that I'd like to change, just kind of throw it on record. With the stakeholders and the group that's going to develop the actual rules and regulations, there's an element in here where law enforcement shall notify if there is an issue with the design of it. And I think that's a standard that would be difficult for patrol guys, whether it's municipalities, state police, or sheriff's office, to actually understand those. So I was hoping to change that shall to a may. So that's the only change. I just want to compliment you and your team for putting this together.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Penman. Mr. Giangiordano.
So, Mr. Truitt, thank you so much for working on this. I worked on this probably 2 years ago, got some roadblocks and had to shelve it because it wouldn't have worked in the present format that it was in. So I appreciate yourself and your staff doing a deep dive in this and putting in that. And we talked a little bit about that, and I think one of the things I'll look to introduce is not only yourself and is there duly appointed representatives that can also make that change, so it doesn't fall on just one person, that there's multiple people that can do that. And I did look at also the fine that's associated with that, but that's been a problem. Hopefully, once we get this squared away, we can take this legislation and look at the town and bring that to the town, and maybe they can adopt the same thing. And I think we were talking about that, so I do appreciate that, and I look forward. And I had said to Charlie, and again, that I'll be a sponsor on this bill as well. Thank you.
As you mentioned in our phone call, as we establish these design regulations under rules and regulations on the county charter, that also provides the towns the ability just to reference that, and then we can keep those updated. So,
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Riley.
Mr. Truitt, I'm trying to figure out what is the penalty if they do not do this?
So in the current legislation, it is a civil penalty. We can use the civil penalty provisions of the code,
Which is
up to $1,000 civil penalty.
for each incident?
Each incident, yeah.
Is it per day?
Per site, per violation. So I believe, if I remember correctly, when we did the legislation, about this time last year for civil penalties, I think they have a 10 or 15-day window to correct the violation, and then the county can move forward if that violation is not corrected to the next step, and then we can seek assistance through the court system to get the violation corrected.
So you're only talking about, you're taking out a 100-day violation, now you're going to $1,000.
It could be up to
Per
$1,000.
incident.
Yes.
And then if they have a problem with that, then you have to go to court, which could
Correct.
be
And under the
problematic.
civil penalty provisions, they can, request a court date and right from that document that we would issue.
That's all, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. Anyone else? Ms. Dixon, do we have anyone signed up?
There's no one signed up, Mr. President.
With no one signed up, this will conclude the public hearing for Bill 24-008. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
It'll be addressed at a future meeting. Thank you. We'll take a short recess as our start time for the general meeting, 7:30. Good evening. Chair calls to order legislative session day 24-011. I'd ask you to please join us in standing for the pledge, followed by our opening prayer by Councilmember Riley. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for the gifts of life, the opportunity to serve the people of our county. I pray that you will guide our council as they meet and discuss matters with regard to our county. I pray that their motivation and everything that they want to do is for the good of the public and not their own. I pray that we'll be able to solve our county's problems and make good policies that address them. Help us to be competent and excellence in our governance. Help us to listen with understanding and goodwill, and help us to speak with clarity and restraint. Give us a spirit of service. In your most blessed name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Riley. Council, if I may, before we move forward, just want to take a few minutes to address some of the public concerns regarding Agenda Item 17, and comments and input from attending citizens that I had conversations with citizens over the past few days. This council chambers, your council chambers, is one of the few places that citizens have the opportunity to discuss any questions or concerns and the people's business, obviously. As council president, it's my charge to maintain a civil, respectful, and safe environment for all, especially in these chambers. At our last council meeting, I asked citizens to refrain from speaking to council members' names, the county executive's name, the sheriff's name. I just think it's time for us to be a little more civil in our county. I'm concerned about some of the conversations that are taking place. I had a long conversation with the county executive, also with my council colleagues, also with the sheriff, and I just believe it's the right thing to do. I may have been a little harsh with Ms. Ganano, and I apologize to her after the meeting. We did schedule meetings with her and Ms. Sadowski for yesterday. Unfortunately, neither could make the meetings. I just, in no means, I think there was some conversation that I've heard off and on throughout the week and last night at the community input meeting, or excuse me, the Community Advisory Board meeting in Joppa. My intent is not to stifle anyone's First Amendment rights, but rather to stop any insulting or inflammatory comments, especially in this chamber. So I'm looking forward to keeping or adhere to our council rules and procedures. Section 1 through 6 clearly states that these types of remarks will not be tolerated in these chambers. And this council understands the importance of hearing from all of our citizens and welcomes everyone to share their thoughts, concerns, and ideas while remaining respectful to each other. So with that, I'll go ahead and move on, but I want to thank you for the few minutes that I've taken here this evening. Agenda number 4, presentation of proclamations. We have none. 5, consideration of petitions, applications, appointments, and nominations. Executive appointments, Harford Center Board of Directors. May I have a motion?
Council President, I move to reappoint Kristen Klein and Nicole Biggs.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. It's been moved and second to approve the reappointments of Kristen Klein and Nicole Biggs to the Harford Center Board of Directors. Is there any discussion? Mr. Bennett?
I'm very lucky to serve on the different boards that I do, from mental health to citizens care to the Harford Center. But the Harford Center especially holds a near and dear place in my heart, and we have a really great board. So I'm glad to see these two women continue to work with us on that board as we support all people in Harford County. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Anyone else? Ms. Dixon?
Mr. President?
Aye.
Mr. Guthrie?
Aye.
Mr. Penman?
Aye.
Mr. Giangiordano?
Aye.
Mr. Riley?
Aye.
Mrs. Bolsados?
Aye.
Mr. Bennett?
Aye.
There being 7 votes in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, these appointments are hereby approved. 6 special presentations, we have none. 7, approval of minutes. Public hearing, March 19th, 2024. Legislative Day, 24-010, March 19th, 2024. Are there any corrections to the minutes? There being no corrections, the minutes stand approved. Mr. Giangiordano, please read Resolution 00824 and 00924 into the record for introduction.
Resolution 008-24, Housing Agency Administrative Plan as introduced by Council President Vincenti at the request of the County Executive. A resolution approving amendments to the Harford County, Maryland Department of Housing and Community Service Administrative Plan, a copy of which is attached hereto to align with the implementation of Housing Opportunity through Modernization Act of 2016 as required by the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, concerning annual income definitions, income calculation, interim re-examinations, net family assets, and hardship exemptions to add human trafficking in all references of the phrase domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, and stalking in order to comply with the Violence Against Women Reauthorization Act of 2022, to delete sections 15.8.2 through 15.8.17 referencing the homeownership program, and to correct any grammatical errors. Public scheduled hearing for Tuesday, May 7th, 2024 at 6:30.
There is no public hearing. And if I can just stop you there before you read the next one. We have Ms. Richardson here with us this evening, if you'd like to.
Sure. Good evening, Barbara Richardson, Director of Housing and Community Services, here to ask for your approval of certain changes to the Harford County Housing Agency's Housing Choice Voucher Administrative Plan. The administrative plan serves as the policy and procedure manual for the administration of the voucher program and establishes local policies in accordance with HUD regulations. Much of what is written in the administrative plan is mandated by federal law. In 2016, Congress passed the Housing Opportunity Through Modernization Act, or HOTMA, which outlined new definition and procedures that renders our current administrative plan out of compliance. In order to comply with the new HOTMA regulations, the current administrative plan needs to be amended to reflect the new regulations. There are numerous minor changes throughout the plan. Examples of the plan of the changes include how income is determined, which family assets are considered, how interim reexaminations are conducted, how hardship exemptions are determined, and the correction of some grammatical errors. In addition, certain language needs to be added, specifically the phrase human trafficking added whenever we refer to domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, and stalking. The department would also like to delete the home ownership program, since the department does not have a home ownership program, and to my knowledge, has not had a home ownership program for at least 10 years, probably even longer than that. All of the new changes required under HOTMA need to be in effect no later than January 1st, 2025, which means our administrative plan needs to reflect the new regulations prior to that. Therefore, I respectfully request the Harford County Council approve the amendments to the Harford County Housing Choice Voucher Administrative Plan to reflect the changes mandated by the implementation of the Housing Opportunity Through Modernization Act of 2016.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Richardson. Counsel, Mr. Penman?
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Ms. Richardson. I know this is mandates, and we're just complying with it, and a lot of those that you mentioned there, as far as the requirements concerning annual income definitions, income calculations, et cetera, I'd just like to learn more about those different changes that are going to be implemented. And I spoke to Larry about it. He said he was going to get me something on, so I look forward to learning more about that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Jandreau?
I think I'm going to echo Councilman Penman's about the same thing, about getting some of the information on that, as far as what annual income definitions are, what's a hardship, what's the percentage of a voucher, I mean, what's the dollar amount of the voucher? Does it vary by different parts of the county? Or is it just one voucher that is encompassing everything? And I would assume that's,
You want me to answer that now?
Sure.
Well, when it comes to income, the amount of the voucher, that's, you really, every voucher is a different amount because it's based on household income, how many people are in the household, and what the apartment rent is. So there's a very complicated formula that we use, what's HUD's formula to determine what the income payment is. As a household's income goes up, the rental assistance payment that the county makes goes down, and vice versa. So it's always a moving target.
is there a maximum number of people that are allowed in a house too?
Whatever the regulations for any rental property would be, so.
Okay.
But we'd be happy to sit and discuss with you. We can send an email there's just a lot of little changes, so the plan needs to reflect what the law is going to require moving forward.
Maybe an email, and if I have follow-up questions, maybe we sit down would be good. Thank you.
Absolutely. I'll be happy to come and.
Anyone
talk
else?
to you about
Mr. Riley?
Yes, Ms. Richardson, I just want to say on behalf of citizens in District D, you guys have done a phenomenal job up there. We appreciate what you're doing. I thank you for the great job.
Thank you.
Anyone else? This will come up at our next meeting. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Giangiordano?
Resolution 009-24, authorization for application of SSTAP as introduced by Council President Vincenti at request of the County Executive. A resolution authorizing the County Executive to file an application with the Maryland Transit Administration of the Maryland Department of Transportation for SSTAP, Statewide Special Transportation Assistance Program, and Section 5303, 5304, 5305, 5307, 5309, 5310, and 5311 and 5318, formula and discretionary operating and capital grant programs under the Federal Transit Act during the fiscal year, and for any additional funds which may be available under the Federal Transit Act during the fiscal year. Public hearing scheduled for Tuesday, May 7th, 2024, at 6:30 p.m. in these council chambers.
Thank you, Mr. Giangiordano. Please read bills 24-00, 010 and 24-011 into the record for introduction.
Bill 24-010, floodplain management ordinance as introduced by Council President Vincenti at the request of the County Executive. An act to repeal and reenact with amendments, Section 19, Buildings and Structures of Article 3, Requirements in All Flood Hazard Areas of Chapter 131, Floodplain Management Program of the Harford County Code by deleting subsection E and renumbering the remaining section therein and generally relating to the Harford County Floodplain Management Program. Public hearing scheduled for Tuesday, May 7, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. in these council chambers. Bill 24-011, sediment control as introduced by Councilmember Guthrie. An act to repeal and reenact with amendments the definition of grading unit of Section 214-1 definitions, and to repeal and reenact with amendments Section 214-22 civil citation and fine, all of Article 1 sediment control of Chapter 214 sediment control and stormwater management of the Harford County Code as amended to modify the definition of grading unit, to increase the civil fine and generally relating to sediment control Public hearing scheduled for Tuesday, May 7, 2024, at 6:30 PM in these council chambers.
Thank you, Mr. Giangiordano. Agenda number 10, introduction and consideration of amendments, we have none. 11, call for final reading of bills, we have none. 12, enrollment of bills, there are none. 13, unfinished business, we have none. 14, new business, we have none. Ms. Dixon, we're going to move to agenda number 17, comments and input from attending citizens.
We have 10 this evening, Ms. Looks like we have 12 this evening, Mr. President. Crystal Rufinacht, followed by Sean Sharpetta.
I would just remind each of you that we have 3 minutes and be respectful of each other. Good evening, ma'am. Name and address, please.
Good evening, Crystal Rufinat, 700 Heston Court, Bel Air. So my name is Crystal, and I am an educator and a resident, obviously, of Harford County. So I'm speaking to you tonight because the county executive recently released a statement that because of Harford County's billion-dollar revenue falling by $13 million, that he plans to fund HCPS at the bare minimum allowed by law. If nothing changes, HCPS would receive $40 million less than the amount requested by the Board of Ed. This also follows underfunding of $29 million last year. Over the past 12 years, the difference in the funding amount requested by the Board of Ed and what was funded is over $200 million. This includes 3 years of full funding under Executive Glassman. I'm coming to speak with you tonight because I'm concerned about the impact that this will have on our kids. There are a lot of great things taking place in schools, but these things are often the result of the additional time and money that's spent on behalf of educators. We do not have what we need. There are needs that go unmet every day, and it's not for lack of educator skill or hard work. Our critics will tell you they don't believe that we're doing a good job, and our question then is, why did you think that this wouldn't happen? $200 million. Over 12 years. The fact that somebody went to school does not make them an expert. Educators are the experts in education. If nothing changes, our county executive will be the only county executive in our county's history to fund the school district less than the year before. Last year, this council was an advocate for the school system, both in public meetings and in the meetings that you held with the county executive. You were able to secure us much-needed additional funding. Many citizens spoke recently at the county executive's budget hearing and expressed the importance of fully funding Harford County Public Schools. The county executive did not look at us the entire time that we spoke to him. I appreciate that you're looking at me tonight. I believe that your actions demonstrate, and the fact that you're looking at me tonight, that you care about our kids and our educators. We continue to advocate to the county executive, but our hopes are not too high that he's really listening to us. So I'm here tonight to just say that we need you. If HCPS will receive any additional funding, it will be due to your advocacy. Even if you're able to secure the entire amount requested by the board, we will likely still be last in Maryland. So I just wanted to emphasize that we are very grateful for what you were able to do for us last year. When we work with educators and legislators across Maryland, our county executives' actions are giving the impression that Harford does not value education. And I believe that the reality is the only one who doesn't is Bob Casserly. He holds too much power. The level of underfunding over the last 12 years cannot be fixed overnight, but we're asking that you help us to take a step in the right direction by, again, this year doing whatever you can to increase the amount of funding we receive through your advocacy. The HCPS budget request represents what we need to keep our ship afloat. If you have any doubt about this budget being reasonable, I just ask that you please reach out with your questions. Thank you for valuing kids and educators in our community.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening, sir. Name and address, please.
Sean Sharpetta, 604 Tantalon Court, Abingdon, Maryland. Good evening, council members. My name is Sean Sharpetta. I'm a teacher at Jobtown High School. I'm here to ask for you to try to do whatever you can do to ensure more money is going to the schools. This is my 17th year teaching at the school. I've been through some rough times in the county, but year after year I've decided to stay put. At one point, I was year 10 employee on a year 4 pay scale because of pay freezes and the underfunding of the school board's budget. I recently was looking at old yearbooks and was astonished at a picture I came across. It was the department picture from the 2013-2014 school year. We had 13 members of our English department. Our class sizes range from 15 to 20 students, a number that almost all experts agree is the most beneficial for student learning. This year, we have 7 members in our English department. Due to cuts on cuts, positions were lost to attrition. Our class sizes all hover around the 30 student mark, the highest in the county. My school is not often looked upon favorably in most of the county. For years, I would talk disparagingly about my school, not realizing the effect that my thoughts had on others. Now I will tell you that I would put my students against any in the county. They are not perfect, but they are more capable than most in this county would tell you they are. We are a priority school. Most of our students fall into the farms category. If you don't know what that is, that's free and reduced public meals. Thank you. Sorry. Which lets you know the socioeconomics of our school. And sure, we have discipline issues, but who doesn't? What I do know is that we are doing great things at our school, and we cannot afford to be cut anymore. I think we all want what's best for our students of the county, so let's show them that you agree by helping to secure funding to ensure that all of our students are successful. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Melissa Williams, followed by Christy Crawford Smith.
Good evening, ma'am. Name and address, please.
Good evening. Melissa Williams, 172 Touch of Gold Drive, Habit of Grace. Good evening, President Vincenti, other distinguished members of the council. My name is Melissa Williams. I am a Harford County Public Schools principal, currently learning and growing in the community of Joppatown High School. I'm also the president of the Association of Public School Administrators and Supervisors of Harford County. Tonight I'm here to share some personal experiences as well. First of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight and for all that you continue to do to support the educators, students, and families of Harford County, and to ask you to continue to advocate for the funding of the education system in Harford County. I've been a principal for 15 years. I was an assistant principal for 7 years before that, and a teacher for 8 years before that in various schools. In those 30 years, I've seen the same budget changes that others have and will speak about tonight. I've also seen great programmatic successes that have ceased to exist because of funding. Tonight, I'd like to share some of that experience with you. I remember being a third-year principal in 2012, struggling to find a way to keep physical education classes under 40 students after one of our PE teacher positions was cut. It happened, but at the expense of seat time for other classes. In subsequent years, I found myself in similar positions in various buildings. More staffing cuts meant tough choices in order to make it work. One time it was a computer course that could no longer be offered. Another, it was level 1 of a world language that disappeared. In other buildings, writing took a back seat, or electives, or art, or music, or class sizes soared above 40. Over time, more opportunities disappeared. Mentoring programs, after-school programs, visits to and from feeder schools to help incoming 6th and 9th grade students transition successfully. Half of an assistant principal position. But, like we've always done in Harford County, we made it work, or at least we got by. We survived. It wasn't until 2022, after several positions and the AP positions were restored, I finally looked around and thought, wow, we're not surviving. Students are thriving. They have access to high-dose tutoring, robust after-school opportunities, access to social-emotional supports, curricular choice, access to well-rounded curriculum. There is still much work to do, but finally, after so many years, I felt that we were going in the right direction. Now in 2024, again, we're looking at significant budget impacts if the county executive follows through on what he has suggested. Staffing cuts at my current building would almost certainly result in class sizes nearing 40. and the loss of access to electives and curricular choice, both huge steps backward for student achievement. I know that the county executive's proposal to fund the schools is at the I know what the proposal to fund schools at the minimum required by law will mean. Minimum funding equals minimal opportunities for students. Please continue to do all that you can to ensure that our students do not have to survive in Harford County schools, but can thrive. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am. Name and address, please.
Good evening. Christy Crawford Smith, 25 St. Mary's Road, Pilesville, Maryland. I'm a 23-year career and technology educator, proudly serving as the president of the Harford County Education Association. And this evening, I am here to urge you to push back on the narrative that Harford County cannot afford more than the bare minimum required by law for school funding. A temporary decrease in one revenue source is not the justification to significantly cut necessary funds that were all but promised earlier this year for our essential services. Over the last 12 years, HCPS has been underfunded by more than 200 million local dollars. So 200 million of our tax dollars were not put into the school system as the community would expect. The only years the request was fully funded in that time was during the Glassman administration. There is nothing more important than a high-quality public education system. The success of our public school system impacts everything, including law enforcement and every single revenue stream. We need you to partner with us to make sure that our tax dollars are spent the way our community wishes and not just socked away for the next pet project of the county executive. I am not being hyperbolic when I say that educators are watching very carefully and deciding whether they want to continue to work and live here. They all have many options. Every single district in the state of Maryland would be more than happy to hire them, and most of them would be offering them a significant pay increase. There will not be anyone to replace them because we continue to face a nationwide educator shortage. We still have vacant positions right now that we couldn't fill for this school year. HCPS is on the edge of a cliff, and if some folks had their way, they would watch the system crumble. There is nothing left to cut aside from programs and people. People who live here, people who pay taxes, and people who dedicate their entire professional career to the students of this county. Our county deserves better, and I'm sorry that you are being placed in this situation once again. And I thank you for your support that you provided last year and in years past. I have spent nearly my entire life in Harford County. I could have chosen to live anywhere, but I chose to raise my family here, in the place that I grew up. So I think it's obvious that I love it here. And when you love something, you fight for it. You make it a priority in your life, and you take care of it for the next generation. I represent nearly 4,000 HCPS educators. That's 75% of all HCPS employees. Many jobs are on the line. So like you, my job comes with a lot of responsibility, and many people are counting on me, which translates into big feelings that I'm not afraid to express. So if I come off a little strong from time to time, that's because I feel strongly. And when I push back on your efforts because we are not progressing fast enough, it's because it's far too important. I think a lot about the legacy that I will leave in this county. I never want anyone to think that I sat back and watched someone dismantle our public school system and other essential services. I want people to know that I fought for what is right and just in our community. I hope you keep that in mind when you think about the legacy that you want to leave in this county. You are here to serve for the greater good, and right now the greater good needs you to stand up for them. Please work with us. The future of this county depends on it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Noah Hutton, followed by Greg Johnson.
Hello, Noah Hutton, 5123 Viaduct Avenue, Halethorpe, Maryland. So I'm a teacher at Edgewood High School. I'm in my 9th year of teaching at Edgewood High School. I graduated from North Harford High School. I have siblings who are still students in the school system. So even though I don't live in the county, I have a big investment in the county, and I was a citizen in Harford County for more of my life than I have been in Baltimore County. So it's very near and dear to me and very influences my life a lot. I just wanted to thank you for your support that you provided last year, because that extra money did help a lot. We didn't have to cut as many positions, and I feel like this year started off really well. And I was really excited about teaching again. People ask me all the time why I drive 45 minutes up to Edgewood, and it's because I do value working up in Harford County, and the students do appreciate me being there. What I will say is this is the first time where I've actually had students who've come up to me and asked me, are you coming back next year? I've never had that question before, and there's been times where I already had accepted jobs in other places, and I felt like because I wasn't making commitments to the school, it was a little more obvious that I wasn't coming back, and I still didn't get those questions. But this year, it's to the point where the students are aware that public education is facing challenging times, and that's just not in this county, it's statewide. If you look at other counties in the area, they're cutting all their JV athletics. They're losing media center specialists in all of their secondary schools. So this is a crisis that's going across the state, and I think it's very imperative that we send that message to the students and to the educators that we value education. So hopefully we don't lose as many educators. There's a mentor teacher that I'm very close with who usually tries to keep every single one of the early career educators, which is another thing that's really important in my life, trying to get educators to stay in education. He usually tries to make it so there's only a couple teachers who leave every single year. This year he's not sure if he's going to have 50% of his early career educators come back, because so many of them are not sure if they want to stay in an area where funding isn't there, salary steps and things like that might not be funded, class sizes are going up, and it's to the point where not just educators but also the students are knowing that. So anything you can do to provide advocacy, any kind of assistance to the education system would be very much appreciated.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, sir. Name and address, please.
Good evening, Council. My name is Greg Johnson. I live in Jessica's Court in Bel Air. I come tonight decrying the relentless daily assault on our civil liberties, in this case, the right to free speech. The First Amendment to the Constitution states, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Over the last 4 years, we've all watched in horror as our federal government has partnered with tech oligarchs to stifle our speech regarding political and health issues online and in the media. We've watched taxpayers the country over who, in the overwhelming majority of cases, are merely telling the truth in calm reasoned testimony, be silenced or even kicked out of public meetings convened and presided over by the very people who are supposed to serve them. These things aren't just happening in unknown jurisdictions in other states detached from us. They are and have been happening right here in these council chambers for years. The latest example happened at the last council meeting when a woman was prevented from uttering the name of her own councilman. After watching the meeting, I was reminded of the 1964 Supreme Court case of New York Times versus Sullivan. Justice Brennan wrote the opinion of the court in a 9-0 ruling, and he cited multiple settled cases. Roth v. United States stated that the First Amendment, quote, was fashioned to assure the unfettered interchange of ideas for the bringing about of political and social changes desired by the people, end quote. Bridges v. California said, quote, it is a prized American privilege to speak one's mind, although not always with perfect good taste, on all public institutions, end quote. Leaning on these cases and several others, the court concluded in New York Times versus Sullivan something that I believe everyone in this room needs to know and put into practice. In America, there is a, quote, profound national commitment to the principle that debate on public issues should be uninhibited, robust, and wide open, and that it may well include vehement, caustic, and sometimes unpleasantly sharp attacks on government and public officials. I have since been informed, as you said tonight, Council President, that you are trying to maintain the civility of your council and preventing a speaker from using names. I would be inclined to believe that if I hadn't seen you remove people from these chambers via the sheriff's deputies, including myself, in Maryland, citizens are allowed to use the names of public figures in speech. To rise to the level of slander, the public official must prove the existence of actual malice on the part of the speaker. The same does not apply in the other direction. These are public meetings. You can't silence citizens. You can't kick people out merely for their speech. You are subject to us, not the other way around. Thank you, and good night.
Thank you, sir.
Davin Hanley, followed by Douglas Rudd.
Good evening, sir. Name and address, please.
Gavin Hanley, 608 Squire Lane, Bel Air, Maryland. I will begin by commenting on the incident that happened at the last council meeting. I would like to remind Council President Vincenti that the United States Constitution and the First Amendment take precedence over any authority he may have in these chambers. The woman was raising a legitimate concern with her councilman and was silenced for doing so. This was a disgraceful act, and Council President Vincenti should be ashamed for silencing one of his constituents. This is not the People's Republic of Harford County. We will not be intimidated or silenced for holding our elected officials accountable. One of the most troubling issues facing the United States today is the weaponization of the Department of Justice to attack political opponents, journalists, and citizens with the wrong political beliefs. For example, the Biden regime sees President Trump as a threat, and they are doing everything they can to crush him. Unelected bureaucrats wield immense power and are using that power to advance their own self-interest and punish anyone who opposes them. I'm afraid we are seeing a similar issue facing Harford County. The Harford County Sheriff's Office has been weaponized to discredit, slander, and attack the current county executive. Sheriff Jeffrey Gaylor, along with his right-hand man, Eric Roby, an unelected bureaucrat, are using the power granted to them by the citizens of this county to attack their political opponents. Eric Roby, the Director of Legislative and Community Affairs for Harford County Sheriff's Office, formerly served as Anne Arundel County Executive John Leopold's Chief of Staff. While serving as the Chief of Staff, Eric Roby provided testimony against his boss for immunity. What did Eric Roby need immunity from? Among many things, Eric Roby received detailed reports from the Anne Arundel County Police Department providing background, property, and business information on John Leopold's political opponents. Eric Roby used the police force to dig up dirt and attack his political opponents. Eric Roby is also the owner of Insider Management Group, LLC, a political consulting business providing services to help get candidates elected. This is important because Eric Roby provides services for Jeffrey Gaylor, as well as several members on the current county council. Since 2014, Insider Management Group has received $27,000 from Jeffrey Gaylor, $56,000 from Aaron Penman, $34,000 from Tony G., $8,000 from Patrick Vincenti, $3,000 from Jim Riley, and $58,000 from Jessica Boyle-Saddles. Between Jeffrey Gaylor and the current county council, Insider Management Group has brought in $188,629 since 2014. Eric Roby works to get people elected through Insider Management Group and then uses his position at the Sheriff's Office to attack political opponents. I would like to remind our current elected officials that Harford County citizens expect you to serve in the best interests of Harford County citizens, not unelected bureaucrats like Eric Roby, not developers, and certainly not former elected officials. If you are not willing to serve in the best interests of the people that elected you, we will find someone else who will.
Good evening, sir. Name and address, please.
Douglas Rudd, 204 Steed Lane, Bel Air, Maryland. 30 years ago, I moved here from upstate New York with one idea, and that was to work in a school system. This was the first school system that offered me a job, and I jumped at the chance to come here. I remember walking around Klein's that afternoon saying, hey, what do you think of the school system? And people raved about the school system in Harford County. And I thought, this is going to be a great place for me to start my career. I thought at one point that I would leave and go back to the small township school districts in Western New York. I thought it was best to stay here because of where we were headed in Harford County. About 15 years into my career, I saw a drastic change in what was happening. The underfunding has been existent from the first year I was here. That's nothing new. And the rhetoric of we get the best bang for our buck in Harford County, taxes are low, school system is great, test scores are high, continues even today when you listen to certain people talk. What I don't understand is how, over the course of my career, we can now see our test scores falling, we see our discipline rates go up, all kinds of systems or problems within the system that are a result of lack of funding. They're a result of staffing changes. 30 years I've been here. I'm proud to work at Bel Air Middle School and support the families as a school counselor. I also have had 2 students of my own go through Harford County Public Schools. Only 5 years apart, and I cannot believe the lack of resources that are available to my daughter, that were available for my son, the courses that he could take that are not offered now because of staffing cuts. This is a huge problem in Harford County. The way I look at it, you folks are the only people that can continue to advocate and do something to change the rhetoric that happens year after year in Harford County. So I come to you and say, as a citizen, as a voter, we need your help. We need you to resurrect the school system that was here when I moved here. I want to say that I worked for the best school system in Maryland. My staff works incredibly hard. It is a gifted group of people that give and give and give to this community. Our kids deserve better. You folks are the only ones that can help us. Please work with us and advocate for the school system. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Colleen Bianco, followed by David Tritt.
Good evening, ma'am. Name and address, please.
Colleen Bianco, 3049 Abingdon Road. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I thought so.
Can't see you.
Pull it down.
Thank you. There. Vertically challenged. Hello, I'm Colleen Bianco, a lifelong resident of Harford County. You know it's springtime because here I am begging you to fully fund the Board of Ed's budget. I was born here, grew up here, and I've chosen to spend my career teaching here. Year 22 for me. It's beyond frustrating to have to beg for funding. But year after year, that's what we do, because that's what we have to do. As you heard from Ms. Rufinat, last year we were underfunded by $29 million. Crazy. This year, the current projections show us being underfunded by $40 million. I'll do the math. In first grade, I can handle it. $69 million in 2 years. The camel's back is about to break. We cannot do more with less. Yes, it gets asked of us every year, and yes, we can, but the camel's back is about to break. Everyone suffers, but mostly the students, because every year my students' needs become greater and greater and greater. And with larger class sizes, the largest this year that I've ever had, I'm not able to provide them with all the individual help that they need. We need to keep the teachers and the staff that we have. I implore you to please look at the budget and fully fund the Board of Ed's request. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening, sir. Name and address, please.
Dave Tritt, Sandy Hook Road, Forest Hill. U.S. citizens have the right to free speech. It is God-given and recognized by both the United States and Maryland constitutions as inalienable. The Oxford Dictionary defines inalienable as unable to be taken away from or given away by the possessor. These rights were given to us by the Almighty, but they have been secured over the last 248 years by the blood of many patriotic Americans, many of whom who gave their last full measure of devotion in order that their children and grandchildren would remain free from the controlling impulses of petty tyrants and despots. As an honorably discharged veteran of the United States Armed Forces, I've known many who have sacrificed to defend our rights and our way of life. My grandfather served in the Navy at Pearl Harbor in the 1940s. The nature of his work was of such that he was never able to speak of it. Even his awards were received with no public recognition due to the secrecy of his duties. We're not friends. I'm not telling you this so we can have a tender moment together. I'm telling you this so that you can more deeply understand how despicable it is that a council president would interrupt citizens who are speaking during the public comment section of this meeting while they're addressing their elected employees. I use the phrase elected employees because, as the other gentleman said, that's what you are. You are not our parents, you're not our masters, you're not our leaders, you're not our bosses. You work for us. If you cannot handle questions about what you, as our employees, are doing, then you should resign and allow someone who understands what your main job is to take your place. What is your main job? It's to defend and protect the God-given rights of the citizens who elected you. If a councilman can't handle some constructive criticism from a constituent, he either needs to grow a thicker skin or resign, especially after that councilman spends his entire time allotted at the dais not to talk about the important issues facing his district or the county, but whining about the county executive. Both men in question are combat veterans. I can assure you they do not need your protection from potentially harsh words from angry constituents. They will not die. They signed up for this. We the people cannot and should not tolerate any revocation, cancellation, or nullification of our constitutionally protected speech under any circumstances from any official. You've crossed the line. I call upon the council president to issue an immediate public apology to the individuals that he's silenced over the last few months during these meetings. And I would strongly encourage the president to read not only the U.S. and Maryland constitutions, but also the history books that detail the men and women over the ages who have given their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor to defend these rights.
Thank you, sir.
Josh Kozel, followed by Scott DeLong.
Good evening, sir. Name and address, please.
Good evening, President. Josh Kozel, 1106 Emerald Drive, Bel Air, Maryland. Disappointed, especially since Ms. Ganano is not here, not saying your actions last week caused her not to come today, but it is a question I do have. I'm also absolutely disgusted with the constant tyranny coming from this dais. Tonight, I want to address the madness from the president's seat with not only cutting off a constituent and silencing them last meeting, but also restricting our public comment on specific topics because it makes not only you, but the entire council look bad. You cannot let your buddy go on a rant, then tell a citizen whom you work for they cannot address the same topic or person. I could go on and on about the corruption and scandals that occur in this chamber, building, and on this council. But I wanted to focus in on one upcoming matter, the budget. First, Mr. Penman must recuse himself from the sheriff's budget. Also, Mr. Bennett, you must recuse yourself from the schools. Regarding the budget itself, and with the fiscal constraints that every citizen is currently experiencing, it is concerning how some of you and some of the government departments want to freely spend so much money like it grew on trees. The sheriff's budget would double since he took office. For one, I do have concerns that this office is top-heavy, just like the schools. For the school budget, do not just approve a big number. I ask that each of you drill down into what is being funded. I have major concerns what the $40 million additional dollars will fund. My only care is making sure the students are funded, a proper education is provided, and all the extra fluff is removed. And our teachers, not the unions, are funded. As a small snapshot from last year's budget, here's what some of the money was wasted on. First, the Wellness Needs Assessment Survey, which is a whole major concern in itself. But HCPS students filled out this information and it was sent to a third-party research firm, Hanover Research Council, LLC, to analyze comments by students. HCPS awarded a three-year contract worth a little over $415,000 of our taxpaying money. When you allow your children to participate in these school surveys, you're allowing their information to be shared with an organization you know nothing about. Second, 107 grant positions were absorbed into the operating budget last year and funded by the taxpayers. This is an absolutely unsustainable practice by the Board of Ed. Grant funding is a way for the federal and state governments to fund and inject their ideologies and projects here locally. Another ridiculous project that the taxpayers had to absorb, and again, note, this has nothing to do with providing an education to our children, but why was the computer training center at the central office removed and replaced with the television recording studio? For what? Irresponsible spending must stop here in Harford County. Us, we the people, are already financially strapped, and it is time that our local government come back to reality. This council, when approving the budget, needs to take your pen out of my checkbook and listen to the constituents, though I know for some of you that would never happen. Good evening.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, sir. Name and address, please.
Good evening, Scott DeLong, Hunters Run Drive, Bel Air. I don't often speak at these chambers, but I do watch the meetings regularly, and as a result, I'm obligated by a sense of fairness and devotion to American liberty and our inalienable rights to speak out on the ethics of this council and the manner in which it is administered by Council President Vincente. I've been a citizen of this county for the past 25 years, and all my time here, I've never seen the amount of ethical conflicts displayed by this council, nor have I seen the vile acrimony that developers, attorneys, donors, and even Sheriff Gaylor use members of this council, specifically Councilman Penman, to attack the perceived political enemies, namely the county executive. You are elected to advance, or not elected to advance your own narrow political interests and feather your nest and that of your donors, friends, and business partners. You are elected to this council to safeguard our liberty and the liberty of the citizens of this county and advance their stated interest. Yet in time and time again, you fail in this duty. You violate your oath of office, you routinely violate the rights of the citizen and deny their stated interest, and ironically, the org chart of Harford County shows the citizen at the top. Mr. Vincente, you violate the rights of free speech at almost every meeting by censoring and shutting down the citizens' right to speak, though those citizens address this council in an orderly and professional tone. Just because you don't like the comments of the speaker doesn't mean you get to stifle their speech. You shut down speakers during COVID that were begging you to defend their right to assemble and worship, while the administrators of Upper Chesapeake were gaslighting the public. Each new day provides data that those speakers that you censored were correct. Yet when the administrators of Upper Chesapeake delivered their testimony, this council never asked one cogent question, and you sat there like dutiful lapdogs. You allowed developers to come into this chamber and threaten the county council with lawsuits, yet you remain silent in the face of this intimidation, yet you have no problem shutting down speakers testifying against development projects while calling their council members to task for pushing development projects against their interest. Now Governor Moore is pushing 3 so-called affordable housing bills that will be anything but affordable to the taxpayer. These bills will totally void the planning and zoning laws of every county and have negative effects on the quality of life and property values of homeowners. These bills will place added strain on infrastructure of Harford and other counties and increase taxes, yet you are silent to these issues with your constituents. Why? This council is administered in tyrannical fashion, consistently run roughshod over the rights of the citizens guaranteed by the Bill of Rights and the Maryland Declaration of Rights. You seem to forget that you work for us, we pay your salary. Vigorous and civil debate should be encouraged, not censored, as is the custom in this chamber. You may not like what we say, but you have to listen to it. Be advised that the people of this county are waking up to the political wrangling and backroom deals that are historically kept tight under wraps. The people are watching, and the council, when it violates the Bill of Rights, the Maryland Declaration of Rights, and the county charter, ethics, and principles of good government, will be held to account. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
There are no more speakers, Mr. President.
Thank you, Ms. Dixon. With no more speakers, we'll move to agenda item number 16, business from council members. Mr. Bennett.
Hello, good evening. I appreciate everyone being here tonight. I do just want to quickly address the concern about whether or not I'll vote on the county's budget. I've looked at the the ethics rulings from Garrett County and Carroll County, where 2 Republican commissioners were employed by their local boards of education, and Frederick County and Anne Arundel County, where they had Democrat educators serving on their county councils. In all 4 of those counties, it's been ruled that there's no conflict of interest in voting on budgetary matters. In the Anne Arundel County Board of Ethics opinion, it stated that due to the scope of impact on the community at large of the Board of Education, to vote on its budget as a whole has no personal gain for that council member that is exclusive to them beyond the community as a whole. So, I mean, I'd be happy if anybody has a concern to forward those ethics opinions to you. Because that's, that was what I made my decisions on last year, and I'll be consistent in that this year as well. On to the work of me as a council member. I attended the Abingdon Wood Coalition meeting last week, which was great. It was an opportunity for the community of Abingdon to receive updates on the proposed development that was looking like it would be happening there. As of now, it looks like a reforestation plan has been proposed. That's huge positive news to help put that area back to its former condition and start over on anything that could be coming. I also met with union leaders of AFSCME to talk about our county employees and their needs, both their needs presently in pay and working conditions, but also their need to have a democratic voice in the workplace, to be able to be heard fairly and to have a process to make sure that what they say is listened to. So that was a very productive conversation. I'll continue to support whether it's our MCEA workers, our AFSCME workers, or anybody else who works within our county government, supporting them any way I can, because without the people who go and pave our roads, plow our roads, take care of our lines, make sure that we have clean water, that when we turn on our sink, without those people, our county has nothing. So I'm always going to be there to support them. I attended the Economic Outlook Breakfast, which was a nice event, although the information that we received was concerning, both listening to our comptroller and listening to economic experts from universities across Maryland. It was concerning information, but with a light at the end of the tunnel, with hopefully a way to land softly and to have good news one day. I'm also working with our Parks and Rec department, specifically closely with Terry Hanley, to make sure that we celebrate Jackie Robinson Day with our youth in Parks and Rec baseball, and we're hoping to extend that to our high school players as well. It's been great working with him for the past few months. This came to us from a senior at Aberdeen High School who said, in all my years of playing baseball, we've never even mentioned Jackie Robinson. Why is that? And he just wanted to make sure in his last year playing youth baseball that he saw that happen. And Parks and Rec has really grabbed hold of that idea, and I think it's going to be great. So I'm happy to see that happen. And then lastly, I just want to say I got to attend the 105th birthday of Miss Mabel Hart over in Havre de Grace, which was a real joy. She's a Harford Living Treasure. She's in the HCPS Hall of Fame. She taught through the segregation and desegregation process at the Havre de Grace Colored School, to the Consolidated School, to what is now known as Roy Williams Elementary, and then went on, when she retired, to help teach adults who were illiterate to know how to read. A really, really special person. I told her that when she had her 100th birthday, my students wouldn't have been able to be there because they weren't alive yet. So that was a pretty fun fact, but it was just really great to see her and to hear her speak and to see her students come and celebrate her, who she taught 50, 60 years ago, who said, I still remember my second grade teacher. So that was a really special experience. But that's all I have this week, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Ms. Sottles?
Thank you, Mr. President. It's good to be back this week. As a board member of the Homecoming Project, it's with deep sadness that I share the passing of Robin Keener, who is the founder of the Homecoming Project. Her passing marks a profound loss for the homecoming community. The Homecoming Project is an 8-bed state-certified halfway house for women, and they've had over 300 graduates. She's touched many lives and will be missed. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sottles. Mr. Riley?
Yes, just two things. Might be a little lengthy for me anyway. The first thing I want to say is I want to thank Boy Scout Troop 809 of Jarrettsville, who had me to come and talk about elected officials. They needed an elected official badge, and so they had me talk about constitutional rights of the U.S. citizens. The second thing I want to talk about is Amy O'Neill, who is the chair of the Jarrettsville-Norrisville Community Advisory Board. It's sad to say that her husband passed away suddenly on March 27th. It was not expected. And I just want to read a little bit about Jim because he was very involved in the northern part of Harford County, along with Amy. The character of a man is defined by faith in God, love of family, and service to the community. And Jim Torr was such a man. A lifelong resident of Harford County, Jim graduated from North Harford High School in 1974. When the Harford County Farm Fair was reestablished in 1987, Jim designed and commissioned the Liberty Wagon to be built by the Viola Carriage Company in Lancaster, PA, and brought it back to Harford County by a 2-horsepower, 2-day trip. He was the feature of of Harford County Farm Fair, all to the reward of the smiles of children's faces. He was known to say, "I wouldn't trade my Amy for the best team of horses in the whole world." And Amy, I know you're going to be looking at this tonight. I wouldn't trade you for any of the team of horses. She is a definite icon up in northern Harford County. And as Jim directed, a party to celebrate his life and family will be held on Saturday, April the 13th at Tower Hill Farm on Island Branch Road in Norrisville. Amy, myself, the whole council, and the community celebrate Jim's life, and we have prayers for you and your family. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. Mr. Giangiordano?
Thank you, Council President. Don Fast passed away. Don was a high school teacher at Bel Air High School who wasn't my teacher, but he was one of my coaches for Bel Air High School, and he touched a lot of young men's life, molded us, and a lot of people stayed in touch with him afterwards. There was always a Don Fest that would go on with his son and everything. So I think Mr. Fassett was in his upper 90s, but it was a great asset to Bel Air's. I moved here from New Jersey as a sophomore and played sports. Sports programs very near and dear to my heart. I made sure a couple years ago that Dr. Bolson didn't charge the kids $100 for them to play sports. I still think any kids that want to play sports shouldn't pay. Advocate for that. Good teachers, good coaches, good schools. I know it's a tough time. One of the things I've asked for is where our funding is with transfer taxes and income taxes to see where they are compared to last year. So I know we advocated last year for some funding for the schools to have the county executive negotiate with that, and thankfully he did. So hopefully we can work something out this year with that. I went to the Town of Bel Air's meeting yesterday. They have their 150th anniversary. This month, if you light up your homes in green to mark the occasion, so if anybody wants to do that, and then ring a bell for Bel Air Town Hall, April 11th at noon. I also attended the Economic Outlook Breakfast sponsored by APG and heard a couple of good speakers. Dr. Arani, who I've heard before, very knowledgeable in what he has to do. And I do have a lot of concerns about the economy. I listen and read about the economy every day. Some days I wonder if it's going to get better or if it's going to get worse. So I just see where we're at right now, and hopefully we pull out of this and we do get some income coming in and maybe some more transfer tax and some home sales and income tax goes up. But and I think that is all I have, Council President. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Giangiordano. And Mr. Penman?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll pick up right where Councilman Giangiordano left off about the economic growth strategy in our county, and I'm looking forward to that coming to fruition for the betterment of our county. And I just note there is an opinion letter written by our Senator J.B. Jennings from District 7 in the Aegis, and I thought it was a great idea, great note, and I'll read it. It says, "New taxes, fees are not the way to ensure fiscal stability. As we navigate Maryland's fiscal landscape, it is evident that the solution does not lie in increasing the financial burden on Marylanders. Instead, we must consider modifying these legislative initiatives to enable revenue from a growing economy to align with the spending required by these policies. By promoting economic growth and ensuring prudent fiscal management, we can navigate these challenges without excessively burden our residents with fees and taxes." So I thought that was good advice from Senator Jennings, and I hope the county takes that advice. So the next thing I have is the opioid restoration fund community outreach meetings that are coming forward. Big Pharma had to pay a lot of the counties across the country, and I think we're roughly getting $12 million. So over the course of April and May, There is meetings set up to allow community members to have some feedback and insight on where that money is going to be spent. So you can go on the county, Harford County MD.gov, opioid fund public input, and you can see the different locations. So Jarrettsville Library, Havre de Grace Senior Activity Center, Darlington Volunteer Fire Company, Harford County Public Library in Joppa, and the McFall Center in Bel Air. So look forward to hearing your input on how the county should use those dollars for resources with the opioid epidemic. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Penman. Mr. Guthrie?
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I just wanted to touch on all of our Department of Energy service personnel and all went to help out down on the Key Bridge situation. It was just unbelievable to watch that bridge collapse in about 2 seconds. It looked like toothpicks on the television. It was hard to believe, and then sit there in recent times and watch them down there with blow torches trying to cut through those humongous pieces of steel and realize they just bent like they weren't, they were nothing. So a special thanks to our Harford Department of Emergency Service personnel, including our swift water rescue teams who went down there, and local volunteer fire companies, all responding within minutes at the request from assistance about this Maryland tragedy. So I know it's going to be a long time before that gets done. I know when they first built that bridge, it took about 6 or 7 years to build it. So God knows how long it's going to take that mess out of there and build a new one. The Avenue Woods Town Hall meeting at the Nita Light Esquire Center. I sent my legislative aide there, Debbie, because I was a conflict of schedules, and as it happens to us a lot. And she brought back all the information from that. Also, I understand, talking to the president at Avenue Woods is set up a meeting with me. We're going to discuss that whole project since it is in my district. Also, they said they saw they knew about my 20-acre bill that's it just was added in tonight, and basically that's to restore the 20 acres requirement that was in our law for as far back as you can find in our records before it was taken out by the last administration. And there's no requirement now, so a contractor can come in, and if they want to build 100 acres at one time, they can clear out the whole 100 acres. There is some forestry in there, but the best law that we had was the 20 acres. Means that they can only, if they got 100 acres to develop, they can only develop 20 acres at a time. It keeps all that runoff from happening like it's been happening for the last 2 years in my district, where it's running off and it's filling the entire Gunpowder River and the Rumsey Island Basin and the Joppatown area with nothing but mud. And it's making a real mess. All the grass and everything was in the water has died. You can't find people fish there. They can't get any more fish because they all have passed away from this mess. The Joppatown Marina now is going to close. The Marine Max who owns that is closing it down as May 1. Talking to the people there about it, they said they're tired of putting up with this mud and the height of the bridge. Of course, we're hoping that when they rebuild the bridges across the Bush River and the Gunpowder, that they'll raise them high enough to make it more efficient. But what happens with the marina when this happens is all the boaters, and I am one, don't go out anymore. So they don't go out, so the marina loses a lot of money. They don't sell any gas, they don't have any repair works, and people don't take their boats out when it's muddy like that because for those boaters out there know what I'm talking about, that water, you run water, outside water through your engines to keep your engines cool, and if you're running that muddy water through there, that mud is just dropping in the bottom of your engine, and you're just going to have, sooner or later, you're going to need new engines. So we'll get into that more when we do testimony, and I'll have some pictures for you up here on the overhead that you're not going to believe. Also attended the Outlook breakfast at Water's Edge. The controller from the state of Maryland, Brooke Learman spoke, and as there's 4 of us there at that hearing, including Pat. Certainly, economic outlook looks kind of bleak, but hopefully there's a light at the end of the tunnel. But hopefully we can get to the end of the tunnel before the tunnel collapses. On Monday, yesterday, we had our Edgewood Joppatown Community Advisory Board meeting. Mr. Penman was there, and Pat came in also. First time I seen Pat at one of those meetings, glad to see him. The people were glad he was there. And we had a guest speaker, Ken Farrell, Vice President of External Affairs for the Upper Chesapeake Medical Center. And we're glad to have him because there was a lot of questions about beds and how many more beds that we have from all the new construction, because we lost the hospital in Havre Grace. But they do tell us there's a plus in beds, not a minus. So we're very happy to have that. But everybody was really concerned also about the problems that we have in our emergency rooms. That sometimes there's people waiting 8 to 12 hours in an emergency room to get attendance. And they're working on that, supposedly. I guess it's an oxymoron to call it an emergency room. If you go in an emergency room, you've got to sit there for 10 or 12 hours. What kind of emergency can it be? But let's hope they can get that fixed, because it's not good now. We also had our local deputy there who speaks for us every month. We have a meeting, and he also talked about the school buses and all the tickets that they're handing out. He said at Magnolia Middle School alone, they handed out 276 violations. In Falston Middle School, they handed out 204 citations. And since last September, when they first put that law in, where they could give these tickets out, they have had over 4,000 violations, and that's at $295 a violation. That's over $1.1 million. I don't know where that money's gone, but that's what's happening now, and it doesn't seem like the amount of the fine has anything to do with it. A couple announcements I was asked to make from last night's meeting. Joppatown High School has a bingo Friday night at April 12th, 5:30. Food and refreshments available for purchase. Store prizes, game prizes, table reservations available. Registration encouraged. The pricing is $20 for a game of books, and $1 for individual sheets, and they're looking for a good turnout for that function. The other one is that Edgewood Cleanup to help build a strong community. The 755 Alliance, which is really an outstanding nonprofit group in our county, is holding that cleanup. Dumpsters will be available, and it'll be in Harford Square Community Center for residents to dispose of bulk trash free of charge. Commercial business, hazardous materials, paints, and tires are not permitted. So with that, that's it, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Guthrie. We'll move to agenda item 15, business from President. I need to get some business out of the way first. Fiscal year 25 council budget work sessions, Monday, April 22nd, Tuesday, April 23rd, Monday, April 29th, Tuesday, April 30th. All these meetings are in this chamber, basically open to the public. They will be audio streamed and will be available on the council website. Also, budget public hearings are scheduled for Wednesday, May 8th at 7:30 p.m. in this chamber, and Monday, May 13th, 7:30 p.m. in this chamber, also open to everyone. It will be on our council chambers video. It'll be videoed, and audio will be live streamed and archived on the council website. The Community Advisory Board meetings, Mr. Guthrie, my staff attends every meeting across this county, as does the county executives. And it's been about I don't know, almost a year since I personally went to Joppas, I guess. But I try to attend as many on a rotating basis as possible. Again, we do get reports from every meeting from my staff, and I appreciate all that they do. I want to talk about the APFO study. Right now, we're currently going through an impact fee study with the group across the street at the administration building. The county executive is working with a group called Tischler Buys to look at impact fees. And as a result of that, because we've had some interest with the APFO study, we decided to look at another outside law firm that is experts in this field. There are not very many available, as we found out. Mr. Sandless, our county treasurer, has contacted those individuals. Mr. Kearney and I met with them last week virtually, gave them some parameters to look at. They will be putting together a proposal for us to share with council members. And then if it looks like something we want to follow through with, we will have that probably presented at our June APFO meeting, and then back to the council for a full vote. Jeannie and I also wish to express our condolences to Amy O'Neill and also the Hathaway family in Havre de Grace. I did not realize that Don Fassett passed away.
Today.
Don Fassett was a fixture at the Bel Air Bakery for many, many years. He was a delight to visit with. I've known him since I was a young boy, so very, very saddened to hear that he passed. But Jeannie and I want to express, like I said, our deepest condolences for the passing of Jim Torr and Marion Hathaway, Don Fassett. Marion passed away at the age of 91. She's a dear friend of my wife's, Jeannie. We went to school with her sons. She will obviously be missed in the Havre de Grace community. And Jim, as you said, was extremely active in his community, the ag community, his church community, the cabs, as you talked about, and was absolutely a staunch supporter of our Constitution. And he reminded me every chance he had. So we will miss him, and we're asking you to keep the Torrey O'Neill family and friends, Hathaway family and friends, in your thoughts and prayers. I do appreciate all the comments from all of our citizens this evening, and look forward to our next meeting. With that, this meeting will be adjourned.